Oh, hi there. Yeah, we should probably talk about that. I am Zazubaar, and welcome back to me talking about stuff. I haven't done this in a while, sorry, I wasn't really sure how to start this, but hello everyone, I'm back from whatever the hell you want to call it, a hiatus or whatever. Not really a hiatus, just basically too busy to do videos, too much stuff going on. I was sick the past week, couldn't do videos because of that. I missed the last episode of Season 3 of the Sons of Sarazal podcast. Didn't get to do my live stream. If you're interested in watching this to find out what happened to Any Questions 5, the live show, stick towards the end. I will bring that up and I will tell you what's happening with that. But the bulk of this video is not going to be about that. The bulk of this video is going to be about, of course, the big G. So, some big things have happened in the past couple days in regards to good old Godzilla that I feel I must address in video format because it's me, and it felt weird not to, so here I am, back to talk about Godzilla. So, what aspect of Godzilla am I going to be talking about today? Well, of course, we've got Godzilla vs. Kong coming out in 2020, we've got Godzilla 2 from Legendary Pictures coming out in 2018, whole bunch of Godzilla going around, we got a new IDW series happening, Godzilla in Hell's coming out in trade soon. There's so much Godzilla going on, and I love it. But, we're talking about perhaps the most interesting interpretation of Godzilla that's been going around recently. Let's talk about Godzilla Resurgence. Shin Gojira, as it is referred to in its native Japan. Godzilla Resurgence, of course, is the 2016 Godzilla film that Toho is producing, the original home of Godzilla, which is being co-directed by Hideaki Anno, the creator of Evangelion, and Shinji Higuchi, who's also done things of note, like a thing I just watched that I forgot the name of. I think it's called Colossal God Warrior Appears in Tokyo? Maybe? Okay, it's something along those lines. If you're watching this, you'll know what I'm talking about, so write in the comments what exactly that was. I forgot the exact words in the title because I'm an idiot. But anyway, and I'm also very professional, so you know. But yeah, so I watched that, he did that, and he also did the special effects for, well, he also directed the 2 live-action Attack on Titan movies, so I guess that's probably one of his bigger directorial notes. But he also worked on the special effects for GMK, the Heisei Gamera series, stuff of that ilk and quality. So, definitely a big name in the kaiju community, and obviously two very exciting names to be attached to Godzilla. As I'm not really familiar with Hideaki Anno's work in particular. I know him more through friends of mine, you know, Andres and everybody, and Dylan, they all know Neon Genesis Evangelion, and they've told me about that, and I know about his work through them. But Shinji Higuchi obviously I have more familiarity with because I've seen the Heisei Gamera trilogy and GMK. But aside from that, I don't have the real familiarity with them that a lot of you guys probably do, so you'll have to excuse that lack of knowledge I have when talking about this, but I think I still have quite the opinion on what's been going on. So, of course, we now know that the movie is going to be called Godzilla Resurgence in its English release, not just Shin Godzilla as it's being released in Japan. But yeah, so what's the big news that happened though? We knew all that eons ago. We knew the name of the movie, we knew who was making it, we knew all of that. We even got a look at Godzilla's design very recently, an official look at Godzilla's design, mind you, where we got that little sort of promo headshot with the poster that we talked about in SOS a couple weeks back. You know, the headshot of Godzilla that everybody freaked out about, including me. And if you want to hear my thoughts on that, I'll get into it a little bit here, since obviously what we're talking about today is in relation to that. But I already did a video on that in SOS, so if you want to go back and watch that, or hear my thoughts on that, go back and watch episode 53 of the Sons of Sarazal podcast, and you will hear my thoughts on that. But today, we are going to be discussing some leaked photos, some unofficial photos from the set of Godzilla Resurgence that give us a more expanded look on the version of Godzilla that we're going to be getting in Godzilla Resurgence, or at least one of them. It's a bit confusing. So, this is not official. And because of that, I almost didn't do a video on it. Not because I'm some kind of like self-righteous, oh, if it's not official, I'm not going to talk about it because I respect what Toho wants and doesn't want to show. I don't care. They should keep their set more closed, whatever. I'm just a fan. I'll talk about whatever I want. But the reason why I was a bit hesitant to do a video on these pictures is more so just because I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. There's no context for this whatsoever. We don't know what this is supposed to be. We don't know what scene in the movie this is. I mean, this could be anything. Here's what I would like to suggest as a potential disqualifier for even talking about this at all. Remember back in Gamera 3 where they did a flashback to the events of Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, and they showed a version of Gamera in that flashback that wasn't the Gamera that was in that movie, nor the version that was in Guardian of the Universe, with what fans refer to as Nightmare Gamera. Imagine somebody snuck onto the set of that movie and snapped some pictures of Nightmare Gamera and posted them on the internet if it had been what it is now back in 1998 was when that was shot? 1998, I believe, because it came out in 99. Imagine if that had been the case. People would have lost their minds just as they are now, but they wouldn't have known that's not what Gamera looked like in the movie. That wasn't the actual design for Gamera. I mean, it was similar, but it wasn't the design. So I'm not saying that's what's going on here at all. I have no idea, and that's the problem. I don't know what I'm looking at. And therefore, that makes talking about it extremely frustrating because I know that in a couple months, everything I say is going to be bullshit. This has happened when I talked about 2014. It happens with everything. So let's talk about it anyway. Because whatever, it's fun to speculate and everybody's freaking out about this. And I've been asked my thoughts on it, so I figured it would only be fitting if I did a video on it. And I'll enjoy it, so fuck it. Let's talk about the leaked pictures from the set of Godzilla Resurgence. They are interesting to say the least. So I've been a bit trepidatious to talk about this, not for just the sake of, lack of context, but also just because I don't want people to hate me, man. These pictures have been extremely controversial. If you're a member of the Godzilla fan base, you probably know that already before you even clicked on this video. Everybody is really divided on this. Some people really like it, some people really don't. And the battle between those two groups has been fierce and words have been minced. Very, very harsh words on both sides. So it was a bit trepidatious to sort of enter that struggle with this video. So to be honest, I really don't care if people hate me for my opinion. That's fine. I've been there many times, but just to enter that struggle is always very intimidating. But here I go, diving in headfirst, recklessly, just as I do all things. So what are my thoughts on these pictures? Alright, I'll be honest. Initially, and again, I talked about this when I saw the head that they put on that poster when I did the episode of SOS with Dylan and Andres. I didn't like it at all. It's extremely different from any Godzilla we have had in a long time. I would even say almost ever. This is a completely different type of Godzilla that we're dealing with here. And because of that, looking at it from a first glance initial look is very jarring. When you first scroll, I mean, I always see these things on Facebook first, so when I'm scrolling on my phone and I happen upon them, they can be very shocking because it's just like, oh my god, this is real. This is the new Godzilla. That's crazy, and he looks so weird. So yeah, there was an initial negative reaction from my part both times that we've gotten a look at what he's going to look like. And I don't think that's because it's bad or because I think it's bad. It is entirely because of how different it is, and because entirely how, sorry, it's very late and I'm very tired. My words are going to get kind of jumbled, but I'm going to press on. It's entirely because of how different it is and because of how radical of a departure it is from recent Godzilla designs. In the past 15 years, we've gotten a very, by and large, very basic, consistent look for Godzilla. I would even go further than that. From the from the Heisei series on, we've gotten a pretty consistent Godzilla look, and this is not entirely dissimilar. As we talked about in SOS, this isn't a completely unrecognizable redesign, but it's a radical departure from I'm going to try and say this in my own words, because I've read a lot of people's opinions already, so I don't usually like to do that when I do these videos. I like to usually jump in with my own thoughts, but I have already read a lot of people's opinions, but I'm going to try and use my own words. You know, we're very accustomed to a very sort of morally gray Godzilla. I mean, from the Heisei series on, he's kind of been consistently the bad guy, quote unquote. We haven't had a truly 100% heroic Godzilla since the Showa series. Even the legendary Godzilla is a little bit of a gray area, but more in the right side of the law, so to speak, than your Japanese Godzilla's been in a long time. But even still, it's a morally gray area. This isn't morally gray. This is just downright terrifying, and that's why it's so jarring. Because again, Godzilla's always been sort of locked into that, like, yeah, he's bad, but he doesn't look like a really horrible, ugly thing to look at that's very terrifying. Godzilla's very intimidating. He's very imposing. But we haven't had a truly scary Godzilla probably since 54. I mean, even GMK, which was really the movie that tried to bring back that very, very nearly horrific bent to Godzilla's design and his characterization, he was never really scary, despite the fact that he looked more menacing and more evil than he'd looked in a long time. This, though, they decided to go in a different approach. They decided to go for a bit of a more horror approach to Godzilla's design, and initially I was very jarred by that, and I didn't particularly care for it, I will admit. But as I've looked at it and as I've toyed with it, and again, I've said this before when I talked about it in SOS, but if you don't watch SOS and this is the first time you are hearing it, I will of course say it again to get to my points about the pictures. It's really difficult to talk about it because, again, we don't know exactly the context of what exactly we're getting here yet. The movie is still months away, and additionally, this is not the same thing as like a Godzilla 2014 or any sort of American movie production. This is a Japanese movie production. We don't follow these movies in the same way that we do American productions because they're not made in the same production style. They're made on a completely different set of rules and a completely different schedule in a completely different way. There isn't that barrage of media attention, and the studio isn't doing that intense viral marketing that American companies do. Toho's done a little bit of it, a very little bit, even going back to last year, early last year, but not a lot. And I think it's been interesting to follow this movie now because of that uprise of that sort of culture in American film production. And we've had a Godzilla movie recently with Legendaries that was put under those sorts of, that it was watched in that way by moviegoers like myself and everybody. So it's interesting to have a Toho Godzilla movie that's being looked at in that way, but put out by people who don't really operate in that style. So that's what also makes this weird to talk about. It's hard to talk about the design because we don't know that. We have no real information on that context. Here's what we know. We know they're going for a 54 bet, and that's very obvious from the design and everything else we know about this thing, including the teaser trailer. Yeah, there's a teaser trailer for Godzilla Resurgence already, kind of. I use the word teaser trailer very, very loosely because it's just people running, and then it's a Godzilla roar with the title. That's it. There's nothing more to it than that. I didn't feel the need to do a video on it when it came out because there was nothing to talk about. I would have gone, well, people are going to run on a Godzilla movie. That's different. And then I would have gone, oh wow, they're very clearly borrowing a lot from 54. But again, we knew that already, so I didn't feel the need to do a video. So I felt the need to mention it here. So the 54 influence is interesting because that's what people have been wanting from a return to the Godzilla franchise ever since Legendary's movie was announced. Everybody was like, let's go back to 54, let's go back to 54. And that's what every Godzilla fan wanted and expected Legendary to do, and that's what they said they did. They really didn't. Of course, I talked about that before, but Legendary's Godzilla movie is not really a straight-up homage to 54. It borrows some things. There are some key elements that are obviously directly referencing the original Godzilla, but it's more of a love letter to the Godzilla franchise overall and the overall flair of the series. This is a very clear slave to 54. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a sense of Hideki Anno and Shinji Higuchi have clearly gone, we are going to make a Godzilla movie in this day and age that is in the style of 54, and we want to see how that works. And to them, and to me, this is an interesting and, I guess, kind of apt way to do it. You make Godzilla look terrifying and creepy and scary. Because 54, while not a traditional horror movie, I don't find it particularly scary. It's definitely a very disturbing and haunting movie, and definitely a movie that leaves you with a lot of gratuitous imagery. Or not gratuitous, very evocative, sort of horrific imagery. Gratuitous is a weird word, I apologize. It's late again, and I'm tired. And I think that this is like, we're gonna do that again, but we're gonna do that with 2016 kind of mindset. We can push the violence and the horror a little bit farther. And I guess that makes sense. It really does. It makes a lot of sense. And I totally get how this look for Godzilla matches into that style. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that has the potential to be really, really good. And going back to that Nightmare Gamera thing I mentioned before, when looking at these pictures, we also have to think how much of this look for Godzilla is going to be the whole movie. How much of the movie is he going to look like this? Because there's been a bunch of articles, and it's again, this is all nothing but rumors. All we know is that these pictures are real. We know at the very least that this is actually from the set. These aren't fan-made, none of that. This is from the set. That's what we know. Apparently there's some plot details that have leaked. I didn't look at those. I don't want to be spoiled, and I also didn't want to spoil it for anybody in this video. So if you were worried about that, don't. I'm not going to do that, because I want to see this thing and be surprised as well, so I wouldn't do that to you guys. But for all we know, this could constitute 5 minutes of the movie. Godzilla could look like this for 5 minutes and we wouldn't even know. There's inconsistencies even between the different pictures. If you look at, this is the one that's obviously the most striking, the one on the top right here. I know you can't really see it that well. I'm a bad YouTuber, what can I say? But I felt like it was more important to react to the camera rather than show it. But maybe I'll put it up on the side here. We'll see how Future Bill's feeling in editing. But if you look at the more provocative one, this one right up here, the sort of side view of Godzilla, he looks really, really fucked up. He does on the top left one too. Particularly, the arm is the thing that's the most striking, and that's what a lot of people have been talking about. The very shrunken, shriveled up, mangled looking hand that he has. And obviously the other thing is the exposed muscle is very, very evocative. We've never ever really seen something like that from the Godzilla franchise. There's been tons of fan art and everything that has that sort of expressed that. There's a very popular piece of Godzilla fan art. I'm not sure from what year. It's kind of old now, from pre-2014. Where it's like, it's called Zombie Godzilla, but it's also sort of been interpreted and discussed in the sense of Godzilla like mid-regeneration, where Godzilla's all mangled up and bloody, and it looks like that he might be in the midst of regenerating his cells like he's been known to do in some continuities. But it's also like an undead version of Godzilla, but not in the GMK way. So we've seen this in fan art before, but this is the first time, obviously, we've ever gotten anything like this officially. We've seen Godzilla bleed before, we've seen Godzilla get badly hurt, but never anything like this. This is obviously very different from anything we've seen before, as I talked about before, and I think the idea is supposed to be here. And again, I'm not the first person to say this. This has been cropped up in a bunch of articles, and a couple of people have already discussed this. I think the idea is supposed to be that this is Godzilla right after he's been hit by the atomic bomb, which is weird. So apparently, again, this movie seems to be borrowing a lot from 54. I mean, just looking at the design, there's a lot about it that screams, 54. Not particularly in the silhouette. Silhouette-wise, it's very different. He looks a lot more, like, sort of... he looks less symmetrical than the 54 design does. And that's the big thing about this Godzilla, is that nothing looks the same. Every part of him looks different. And again, I think the reason why they did it that way is because this Godzilla is very clearly supposed to be a mutant. This version of Godzilla very clearly seems to be different from legendaries and different from... even 54, depending on your interpretation. very clearly going after the mutation angle, going after the dinosaur that got hit by a nuclear bomb and turned into Godzilla type of thing. Now, I don't know what exactly that means for the story. Maybe the plot details that leak do explain that. I'm not going to even touch that. But speculation-wise, there's some interesting roads that can be taken with this. So if we've got a Godzilla here that's fresh off being hit by the atomic bomb, that could mean a couple of different things. My first thought was, are they doing a Godzilla origin piece? Is this a flashback to the original, to like a 50s era Godzilla that's just been born, just started attacking? We don't know. Because I also read something somewhere about this being a direct remake of 54. I don't believe that for a second, though. I don't think Toho would do that, number one. And also, that doesn't make any sense. Whether you're just basing that on the interpretation of Shin Gojira, which is new Godzilla or true Godzilla, or God Godzilla. There's a whole bunch of interpretations of that title. But then you look at the actual, English official title, Godzilla Resurgence, and this being a remake of 54 doesn't make any sense, because obviously it would be Godzilla's first appearance. So we know that that can't possibly be the case. This has to be a return for him. This has to be Godzilla exists in this world prior to the main plot of this movie. That's my own interpretation. Is it true? I don't fucking know. We'll find out when the movie comes out. But that's my interpretation. And if that's the case, I think that what we're looking at here could either be what I said before, flashback. We could be getting an opening of the movie that sort of shows us the origins of Godzilla. In fact, I think that that's likely, given that this is supposed to be a reboot, and also this is Toho's first Godzilla movie in 12 years now, I guess. So I think that it's very likely that we'll get a sort of, if you don't know anything about Godzilla, here's what Godzilla is according to the people who own him. And not just like letting people's interpretations be legendaries or whatever else they were exposed to. I think Toho is very likely to be more like, this is what we want you to think Godzilla is. And perhaps by doing that, they'll open with a very, very evocative origin where they show this mangled, horrified, just being mutated Godzilla, and then maybe that's the first version that appears. Because the rumor that's been consistently spread is that there's going to be 3 forms for Godzilla in this movie. Now, first off, I find the word form troubling. I don't like it. I don't think that it's accurate. I guess you can call it that, but the word form seems to indicate transformation to me. Maybe that's just because I'm a DBZ fan, and that's what that is always used to refer to in Dragon Ball Z. But I don't like the word form, is because it sounds like Godzilla. There's going to be 3 different, very, very different looking Godzillas. Like, there's going to be like a Godzilla that looks like this, and then a Godzilla that looks like this, or whatever. I don't think that's what that means. I think what the idea is supposed to be is that Godzilla is going to, and again, I'm not the first person to say this, is that Godzilla is going to heal over the course of the movie into more of a solid sort of state. Like, this is the fresh, wounded Godzilla right off the back end of the bomb. And then over the course of the movie, as time passes, perhaps even the 60-odd years since the original 54 attack, if that's what they're going to use, we don't know. I'm assuming so, though, given how faithful and how reverential they're being to 54. Then perhaps in the present day we'll see a more solid, fully formed Godzilla where the wounds are healed, but he still looks all mangled and deformed and mutated. He just doesn't look as rawly mangled as he does here. I think that's what's likely to be the case. I can't really speculate what the third form would be, though. And again, there are differences between the different pictures here, so we could even see time passing in these 4 pictures. Like, this could be your newly mutated, these 2 pictures could be your newly mutated Godzilla. And you can sort of see the differences in terms of, this one doesn't seem to have a pupil. This one doesn't seem to have a pupil either, and there's, the exposed muscle is more apparent on the top 2. But then the bottom 2, they appear to have pupils, and the skin looks a little bit more traditionally charcoal gray, and less sort of exposed muscly and mutated. So maybe that's his second form, because you can still see some exposed red stuff, some exposed muscle, and some damage on him. So maybe this is supposed to be the second form. And then I would be led to assume that the head that we saw on that promo image is the final Godzilla we're going to get, the fully formed, final Shin Gojira, so to speak. Is that cool? Yeah, I guess. And I know that it sounds kind of facetious of me to say. I don't mean that in the sense of like, yeah, it sounds alright, I could take it or leave it. I'm saying it in that way just because, again, I don't know what that means. Like, I can't really speculate on how I feel about it because I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from it. I'm supposed to be scared of Godzilla, clearly. And again, it's hard to say that from these images because they're not in context and they're not official and they're not really supposed to evoke any emotion whatsoever aside from, hey, that's the suit. So in that case, yeah, that's the suit. But I don't really get a feeling of how I'm supposed to feel aside from he's mangled looking and he looks fucked up. So I definitely get that vibe from it as well. I'm very interested to see what this thing is about. I guess I haven't done a solo video on Godzilla Resurgence, and I think that I should have sooner than this. But I'll also take this time to go a little bit more general, just do some story speculation or where I'd like to see this thing go, if you'll indulge me. Since I haven't done a solo video on this. It's very hard to speculate, because I personally know so little about the overall narrative. Again, I know particular things that I can kind of work into a story, but not enough to sort of construct an actual narrative in my head. And guess what? I couldn't be happier, because that's amazing. I love that I can't do that. I can't wait to watch a Godzilla movie and not know what's going to happen. It's a rare treat for me. So that's not a bad thing by any stretch. It's just the fact of where we are now in the timeline of this movie's release. One last thing about the design, since I really don't have much else to say. He looks fucked up, and I'm assuming there's a good reason why. And I'm assuming it's going to be interesting. It's definitely very, very interesting. I said that in my Facebook post I did about it. There's got to be a good, interesting reason why he looks like this, and I just hope that the way that it's executed is done well. That this isn't just done as a shock factor of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we made a really horrifying, fucked up looking Godzilla. I hope that's not the case. Is there a chance it is? Maybe. Sometimes some Japanese movies tend to be a little bit more style over substance. A lot of Godzilla movies, in fact. So I'm hoping that that's not the case here, though. Hideki Anno and Shinji Higuchi's track records seem to indicate otherwise. So I hope that it's done for a more substantial reason than just, hey, it looks fucked up. So I can't wait to find out what that reason is. But one last thing about the design. Let's talk about the spikes. So I talked about this in the SOS episode we did on this. But I'm very, very happy that we're going back to the maple fins, to the maple leaf-shaped Godzilla spines, because we haven't had them since Final Wars. They're the classic, traditional Godzilla spines. They're what I grew up on. I love seeing them. Whenever I see those, the first thing I think of is Godzilla. So I'm happy to see those back. They're not traditional maple leaf spines either. They're a little bit more jagged. They're kind of a mix between your Godzilla 2000-esque spines and your 90s classic era. And 90s wasn't the classic era, but your Showa Heisei maple leaf spines. In fact, what I'm most reminded of in terms of the shape are the Son of Godzilla spines from the 67, what was that suit called? I don't remember. But from the 67 suit, where they're a little bit more wavy looking. But texture-wise, they don't look like that at all. They look... I don't know what's going on here. So... I have two interpretations of why the spines look like that, where they look sort of like they're made out of magma or some kind of volcanic rock, or the other interpretation is they look like they've got exposed arteries. It looks like you can kind of see what's inside of them. I think you can interpret that either of those ways. Which one would I prefer? Well, I think it makes more sense for them to be exposed arteries given the rest of it, since, the rest of what he looks like is exposed muscle and fucked up teeth and everything. It would make more sense if that's just there because it's damaged and not that it's been turned into some kind of, elemental force, with being turned into rock. But it would make sense for Godzilla's spines to be made of something like volcanic rock, given what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to indicate that his atomic breath is charging up, so I guess that makes sense, and we also have no idea what they're doing with the atomic breath in this movie. I'm assuming we're going to get something closer to 54, though, where it's more of like a spray of radiation rather than a purified beam. I'd like that. I think that'd be a nice return to that. We haven't had that since the very early days of Godzilla. I mean, 2014's breath was a little bit mistier than we've had tradition in recent years, but even that was more of a beam than it was anything else. I think we're going to get kind of like a misty sort of very, very like sort of just not very purified, specifically aimed beam. I think we're going to get like sort of a chaotic spray out of the atomic breath in this movie. And I think that'd be cool. We haven't had that in a very long time, so I can't wait for that. I think there's also a good chance it might be red as well, or maybe even just a mix of colors. I'd like to see a mix, maybe some blue and some red, maybe some gray, whatever. I'd like to see a little bit of a change up. But yeah, it's hard to say what exactly that means. I would also, if I had to guess what the color of his atomic breath was going to be in this movie, given the track record, you got two options. You got black and white from, 54 and Raids Again, and then you got blue and you got red. So, if I had to guess, though, if I had to be a betting man and put money on one specific color, I'd have to guess red in this instance, though, because that's what color the spines are. And it'd be weird if red spines turned blue to indicate the atomic breath powering up. So I'm assuming that, again, if I had to pick one, I would guess that his atomic breath is probably red in this movie, which I'm fine with. We haven't had that since Megaguirus. We had the super atomic breath or the spiral atomic breath in Final Wars, but that doesn't really count. That was more maroon than anything else anyway. But I'm fine with red atomic breath again. We haven't had that since Megaguirus, so I'm fine with that. In fact, again, we could get an evolution of that even. It could change over time. So could the atomic breath. Again, if we're getting a passage of time in this movie, a progression of Godzilla's look and powers, which again, I think is pretty cool. We haven't had that in ever, I don't think, really. I think it'd be cool for it to start out as red and then evolve into blue. Maybe, because the spines don't look like that in every picture. The official one, the one with just the head, the spines look normal. They look just normal, like normal gray Godzilla spines. So maybe the breath starts out as red and they start out looking that fucked up, and then as the time goes by and as he heals or as his form changes or whatever the explanation is in the movie, maybe it'll transform into the traditional blue, and maybe it'll even become more beam-like and more purified as time goes on, which would make sense. I think that'd be cool. But let's do some story speculation, since I've been going on for a while already. I have no idea, again, what's going to happen in this movie. So here's what I know, though. I know that it's got a lot to do with U.S. and Japanese government involvement, and I know that the Godzilla attack in Japan is what causes that. I don't know what year this takes place in. Again, I'm assuming the present day. The teaser trailer is in the present day, so I'm assuming that most of, if not all of the movie takes place in present day. And as far as we know right now, Godzilla is the only monster in the movie. There's been nothing said or released that indicates otherwise. And again, given how close this is to 54, if I was a betting man, I would say that Godzilla is going to be by himself in this movie, which I am totally fine with. Godzilla hasn't been by himself in 32 years now, I think. If my math is right, maybe I'm wrong. I think 32 years. So I'm cool with that. I'm totally fine with, I'm trying to think, that's right, 32 years it's been since Godzilla 84. So 32 years of Godzilla being with other monsters. I think it's more than enough of a good reason to give him another shot in his own. So I think that's fine. And we also know that, that's about it, isn't it? We know that the US and the Japanese are going to cooperate or debate in some way about Godzilla's reappearance, or I think reappearance was in the official synopsis that I read. So, and again, the title indicates reappearance or resurgence. So, just like Independence Day. So I'm assuming that Godzilla returns in some capacity, and it's the modern world's reaction to that, which is awesome. That's exactly what Godzilla 84 was about. And Godzilla 84 is one of my favorite Godzilla movies because it's an interesting look at the problems presented by Godzilla at the height of the conflict between the Soviet Union and the United States. And it's really interesting to look at Godzilla in that context. So I think it'll be very interesting to look at Godzilla in a modern context, despite the fact that atomic warfare is not exactly the biggest issue on our minds these days. So it'll be interesting to see the interpretation of Godzilla that we see in that context. Which also makes me think that we're going to get a very political movie, which again, I'm totally fine with. A lot of my favorite Godzilla stuff, it involves a lot of politics, so I'm very happy with that. But basic story, as far as I can guess, is that I'm assuming America has to do something that causes Godzilla to return, because otherwise, why would they be involved? I'm assuming Godzilla attacks Japan, because otherwise it would be weird if he didn't. Given the fact that Toho is... We just had a Godzilla movie where Godzilla attacked America, or he was in America. I'm assuming that the Japanese are going to want to keep him home this time. So I'm assuming that Toho is going to keep Godzilla Japan-centric. In which case, I'm assuming America has to fuck up somehow that causes Godzilla to return. I doubt it's an atomic test, because that just wouldn't make any sense in the modern day. So I'm assuming that there has to be some kind of either nuclear meltdown, maybe in America, or perhaps some kind of experiment they do, or it could be anything. Again, I'm assuming it's going to be tied to the modern political world. So maybe it'll involve some sort of new weapon. I can't even guess. I mean, it could be anything. Maybe it's even just a nuclear submarine that they lost or whatever. But I'm assuming that America is, if not directly, indirectly to blame for Godzilla's return in some capacity. Again, I can't even guess how. In which case, they would then offer their assistance to Japan, feeling responsible for their place in Godzilla's return and the obvious horrible destruction he would inflict upon Japan. And in which case, I can't really predict where the plot would go after that. I mean, what do you do? I'm assuming, and I think it would be the most interesting to see, maybe Japan... And again, there could be some again, I didn't say this yet. There could be some meta-commentary in here as well, because I'm assuming part of the reason why Toho is putting in such a large American presence in this film is because America just put out a very successful Godzilla movie. So I'm assuming that they're putting that in there for that reason, in which case I'm wondering if there's going to be some commentary in terms of, Toho's a little bit jealous, or at least the vibe that I've gotten from some of the things that they've said seems to indicate that they're at the very least competitive with how successful Legendary's Godzilla was, and how successful their Godzilla will be to the fans. And I think that this movie will be sort of about how America has this viewpoint on Godzilla, or they have this method of trying to deal with Godzilla that perhaps the Japanese deem unwise, or they deem sort of just sort of wrong, and then that causes more problems. Again, I can't even guess where it's going to go from there. That's what's so frustrating. But maybe America again in trying to fix the problem fucks up worse, and then maybe that's how you get the third form of Godzilla that we're not really sure about yet. Again, maybe it's just the one from the poster that we already seen. But who knows? And maybe the three-form thing is bullshit, which I've also heard. So who the fuck knows, man? All I'm saying is that I think that the conflict between the Japanese and American governments over how to deal with the problem of Godzilla is going to be the primary drama of the film. In which case, it doesn't really seem like a movie that's going to be about as much of like Godzilla's character in terms of the humans' characters. That's a weird. What the fuck did I just say? The human character's reaction to him. Again, which is totally fine. A lot of my favorite Godzilla movies are just about that. I don't need every single movie to, develop him in some way or sort of explore what he means in some way in terms of how he operates, why he does what he does. Maybe he just has to do what he does, and we have to watch ourselves react to it in an interesting way. I would prefer a movie that gives us more of an in-depth look to why Godzilla does things, and and develop, you know, what he is and why he does the things he does. But again, I don't need every movie to do that. It's hard to do that well. It can be done in a really hammy, terrible way. Like, look at Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. That movie definitely gets into some more of Godzilla's own characterization, so to speak, and it's pretty fucking terrible. So I'm totally fine with the movie that just goes, we know what Godzilla is, or at least we think we do, and it doesn't matter why he does it, it just matters that he does it, so now let's react to it. I think that's fine, that could be interesting. You just have to make us care about the human characters, and you have to make the political and scientific situation interesting. I would definitely like to get some more science in this movie in terms of, you know, scientifically breaking down, like, why Godzilla is the way he is. Not like maybe his behavior or his motivations, but just, you know, how does his regeneration work? Since obviously we're going to get a glimpse at that based on these photos. Obviously he's going to physically evolve, or just physically change, so it'd be nice to get into that. Maybe we'll get a version of Regenerator G1 in this continuity, or something else. Maybe we'll get a more specific interpretation or analysis of how nuclear radiation works into Godzilla's physiology. Maybe we'll get a way for like an anti-nuclear energy bacteria sort of thing, where they're going to try and find a way to exploit that aspect of him. Who knows? All I'm saying is that I'm very interested to see a movie where we've got people versus Godzilla, or people reacting to Godzilla, and that's the narrative. It's simple, and there's a lot of room to go in that, and that's really cool. So, to be honest, guys, I think I'm kind of spent on this. The only other thing I'll say, I'll bring this up mostly because I would feel remiss to not mention my good friend Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, in this video, who was a huge help to me in preparing to do this video, and to motivating me to do so. So thank you, Andres, for sending me all that information on this movie that I didn't already have, and just getting me up to speed. You're an amazing friend, and thank you so much. But he sent me I mentioned at the beginning of this video, a 10-minute clip of, or the whole movie actually, it's a short film of, again, I forget the name, of Shinji Higuchi and Hideki Anno's previous collaboration to this. Colossal giant god warrior appears in Tokyo, or whatever that film was called, in which case a giant creature appears in Tokyo and wreaks havoc. It's apparently a prequel to a Hayao Miyazaki movie, which is crazy interesting. I need to dig more into that when I have more time and I'm not half asleep. But that's crazy interesting, and I couldn't watch the whole thing because my internet connection fucking sucks tonight. But I watched a little bit of it, and the special effects were incredibly impressive. We are in good hands in terms of modern-day suitimation for a Godzilla movie, which, by the way, that's obviously confirmed. It's going to be a suit. I once did a video where I was like, we're probably not going to get any more Godzilla suits, so this is really cool. And as a suit, it looks fine. I mean, this picture looks a little cheesy, the close-up on the eye and the face, but it's not, again, this is unofficial, it's not supposed to look like that. It'll look better in the movie. And the footage that I saw from that short film was incredible looking. There were a couple moments of shaky CGI. There was one moment where the monster was like levitating above Tokyo, and the shadow looked terrible because you could obviously tell it was just like a copy of the picture of the composite of the monster of the suit, and then just blacked out. It looked god awful. It doesn't look really cheap, but otherwise it looked incredibly impressive. The suit itself looked amazing, and apparently it's not really even a traditional suit in that film, and apparently in this as well. And again, I've heard conflicting reports about this, but I'm gonna base this on what Andres said, and also I'll just mention it because it's out there. Again, I don't know if this is true, so don't take this as fact. But at least the monster in that film was not just a guy in a suit. It was 3 people operating different parts of the suit in more of a puppetry animatronic sort of way. And if you look at this Godzilla and how asymmetrical and sort of fucked up it looks, I'm assuming this is not a traditional suit. I'm assuming we're looking at something more in line with that, where it's people operating a physical thing, but it's multiple people, and it allows the Godzilla to be a little bit less human looking and a little bit more sort of versatile, which is great and very, very interesting. And I'm assuming that that's going to look incredible when it's all done and edited and with some CGI over it to clean it up, which is obviously what they're going to do. Because both the live-action Attack on Titan movies and that short film, there was a lot of CGI to touch up and add certain things to the suit and the monster to make it look a little bit more natural in the environment, to make it look a little bit scarier, a little bit more sort of pop against the video. So I'm assuming they're going to do the same for this, and I am totally fine with that. That is what you should be doing with CGI anyway, so I'm very happy with that. Go all Force Awakens with it. Practical meets CGI. I love it. So that's great. And I can't wait to see how it looks. But again, it's not confirmed that they're doing the whole 3 guys operating some sort of suit type of thing. So who knows? We'll find out as more information develops. And I think that's going to do it for this video. So thank you very much for watching. I had a great time talking about Godzilla. It's been too long since I've done this. And it's been a while since I've been like really into Godzilla. Just sort of been my usual casual Godzilla fan self recently. I haven't really watched anything in a while. I actually think I'm going to pop in 54 after this and give it another watch after a while. So I think I'm going to do that in celebration of all this news about Godzilla Resurgence. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and now it's time for some updates. So a couple things. Again, I wasn't on the last episode of SOS, but Andres did a great job of hosting it in my place, so thank you to him for doing that, and great job to Dylan and David, of course, for doing the Andres' Rockin' Eve retrospective of 2015 with good old Kaiju Noir. So thank you very much to you boys for doing that. You did a great job. And thank you very much to our fans who watched it and said they liked it. Cool. So in that video, though, Andres said a bunch of announcements for me that I would have said if I was there. But I'll repeat them here in case you didn't hear that, and just because I want to say them in my own words. So number one, as of course you know, and I mentioned it before, the live show that I was supposed to do last Monday got canceled because I was sick. I'm still sick a little bit. I'm mostly better, but I still have some residual symptoms. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice. Obviously, I'm still coughing up a lung, so I'm still not perfect, but I'm better and I'm functional and obviously able to do videos. So I was actually going to do the live stream tonight. However, I was at work before. And my boss offered me an interesting deal where I would have off Friday night if I worked during the day. And the second she said that, I was like, oh god, I am totally doing that live stream Friday night then. I think that's a better slot for it. The idea of doing a live stream Friday night, that just makes more sense to me. I think more people will be able to watch it live. And it'll just be more of a better atmosphere for the show. And also, it'll give me a week to plan it out better. I didn't really have all the logistics planned out today, so I'm glad I didn't do it today. So we'll be doing it Friday. I will update everybody on the time. I'm not positive yet, but we'll say tentatively around 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for the live stream. I think that might change. It could go earlier, could go later, probably earlier, but we'll see what happens. But right now I'm going to say 9 p.m. tentatively for the start of the live stream. Again, I will let you guys know on Facebook and Twitter, and I'll find some way to upload. I'll find some way to update everybody who just follows me on YouTube to that information if it changes. But again, 9 p.m. tentative time at the TT. So we're going to do that Friday night. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the questions that everyone put on the old Any Questions 5 video that I didn't answer last Monday. I'm just going to use those questions. So if you still like to post anything, you still have a week, or not really a week, 5 days. So go ahead and you can still throw those questions on there if you haven't asked anything that you wanted to ask. There's plenty of stuff to ask still. You could still ask me about the Godzilla Resurgence suit leak. If you'd like to, you can post those questions there. You can ask me about Batman vs. Superman, Captain America Civil War, Star Wars, whatever the fuck you want. You can ask me about where I got this sweet-ass jacket. And the story will be very uninteresting, but I could do it if you want me to answer that question. So you can ask all those questions in the comment section of that video. Still, I'll link that in the description in case you can't find it for some reason. Even though it'll probably pop up in the recommended videos for this video, which will make that effort I'll put in pointless, so fuck you, YouTube. Anyway, so that is all I have to say about Any Questions 5, I think. So again, post your questions if you haven't. Be ready for Friday if you have, and get excited because it's going to be fun. So I'll answer those questions, obviously, in the first part of the live stream, as I always do. And then, after I've gone through all those questions, I will take live questions like I do every year, and that's when I'll bring in co-hosts. Dylan and Andres will be there, maybe some more people. and I'll bring them in after I do all those other questions. So have that all planned and ready to go, and I hope you guys will be able to join me. We're going to have a great time. I'll be drunk. First time live. It'll be really fun. So if you'd like to see me drunk, come to the live stream. It's going to be good. I've never talked about Godzilla drunk in a video before, so that'll be fun. So yeah, that pretty much sums up Any Questions 5, all the updates on that. But what else? Obviously SOS is going on hiatus now for roughly a month. We'll be back around February 6th. That's when we're recording the next episode, the first episode of season 4. But it'll go up a little bit after that, a couple days or so. So I'll keep everybody updated on that. But yeah, SOS will be back in a few weeks, as well as the good old Demons from Outer Space. That hasn't been a thing since late July of last year, 2015, because it's 2016 now, kids. We're in the future. Deal with it. It's scary. We're all gonna die one day. Wow, that went dark. I'm sorry. Anyway, in the realm of 2016, we'll be bringing back the Demons from Outer Space. We're actually going to be doing a special episode of DFOS that'll just be sort of a one-off, where Dylan and I, and maybe guests, maybe, I'm not sure yet, I haven't made up my goddamn mind, we'll discuss all of Season 9 of Doctor Who, which I haven't talked about at all yet. Really in anything. So I'm very excited to do that. I've finally just got caught up tonight. I just watched the Christmas special, and I actually loved it. So I can't wait to talk about it with Dylan. We're going to record that Thursday night, and I'll put it up as soon as I possibly can. So look out for that Demons from Outer Space special episode in the next couple weeks. It might take a little longer editing on that because I'm not sure what I'm doing with the intros and everything yet. So bear with me. I'm going to do my best to get that up as quickly as I can. And then DFWest will come back for its first... since I had a whole plan for restructuring it just like we did SOS, the newly redesigned Demons from Outer Space will be cruising into a galaxy near you around February 12th, I think is that date. It was said in the SOS episode. I don't have it out now. I don't have it memorized, but I think it's around February 12th. So look out for that. And I'll update everybody on what exactly it's going to be like in the Demons from Outer Space special episode we're going to do for Doctor Who Season 9. So look out for that. We're also going to be doing a new series. We're going to be doing a pilot for it in the next couple weeks. Not a ton of information on it, but basically the premise is, wow, second time I'm going to be mentioned doing something drunk. I don't have a problem. But basically the idea is that myself and my good old friend Super DM64 are going to be watching movies under the influence of alcohol and doing commentaries on them to sort of analyze movies that we've been watching for years or maybe not watching for years under the new lens of alcohol. So we're going to be doing that, and we'll also always have a sober person with us. In the first episode, it's going to be Andres with us to sort of guide the conversation and keep us on the straight and narrow as much as possible for those commentaries. So I want to announce that the movie that we're going to be doing first, we have picked it, is until that goes up, but it is a Godzilla movie, so look out for that. It's very exciting. It's not the one you might expect. So if you guess it, I'm not going to confirm it, but go ahead and try and guess. It is a Godzilla movie, though, and it is a Showa-era Godzilla film. And we're going to watch it drunk. It's going to be fucking great. So that series will be called, it's sort of it's a work in progress. I won't even tell the title until we're really sure, but we have a working title. We'll work with that. So that series will be going up over the course of winter break as well, since I'm on winter break right now, during the SOS hiatus, but we're going to record that next week. So I'll update everybody as more and more and that develops. Again, I don't have everything set in stone on that, so be sure to look out for more info on that. And all things Zazubaar and SOS related can be followed, of course, on Facebook. You can follow me personally on Facebook. You just look up Billy Worcester. You can follow me there. I might not necessarily accept personal friend requests. If I don't recognize names, I don't usually accept friend requests. But you can follow my timeline, and you can send me personal messages if you would like to on my Facebook page. So you can go ahead and do that. You can also, of course, follow the Sons of Serizawa Network homepage on Facebook, which is more general. All four of our sort of activities are posted up there. Whenever we put up a new podcast or video, you can find that on the SOS Network homepage. So look out for that as well. You can also follow me on Twitter, I guess. I don't post on Twitter a lot, but I do it sometimes. So you can follow me on Twitter at Bill_Worster. I'll put that in the description as well, if I remember. So you can follow me on Twitter. And that's about it. You should join Toho Nation as well. For the first time, we got recognized today, perhaps incorrectly, but this is cool. I'll mention this. I should have mentioned this earlier. Godzilla Resurgence started trending on Facebook earlier tonight, and in the Facebook sort of news feed trending page, or whatever you want to call it, Toho Nation was mentioned as where those pictures were first leaked. I don't think that's true, but I was obviously I didn't create Toho Nation, I'm just one of the assholes who runs it. We were all very honored, of course, to be mentioned in that capacity. That was awesome. So thank you, Facebook, for giving us a shout out. We really appreciate that. So join Toho Nation if you want to get involved in arguments about whether or not you're a Godzilla fan for liking or not liking the new Godzilla design. And do you think I am a true Godzilla fan for my own opinions on Shin Gojira's design for the new film Godzilla Resurgence to be released this summer in 2016? Be sure to leave that down in the comments. And what do you think? Do you hate it? Do you like it? Do you just want to wait to fucking see what it looks like in the movie like I do? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching as always, and thank you very much for being interested in my thoughts on the Godzilla franchise, because I sure like talking out of my ass about it. So I appreciate that as always. Thank you very much everybody for your undying support. You guys are great, and following me through my trials and tribulations as I attempt to be productive on YouTube. So thank you very much, of course, for all of that and more. So until we meet again, kids, I am Zazubaar. And sayonara.